Great, thank you, Jen. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. I don't know if anybody, I think I recognised some names from my session last week on case studies. So this week it's much more kind of practical, more about the how-to of writing than showing you lots and lots of examples of different things. I'm going to try to do as much. Again, I always feel I have to make these apologies, and it's not an apology because we understand how we are, but usually we do this stuff face-to-face, we do it in much smaller groups, and we do lots and lots of you doing practical work, and we have longer than an hour and a half. So apologies that it is more of me talking than it would be in an ideal situation. However, I am going to get you, we're going to split you into groups, and we're going to do that twice. It might be a different group both times because I don't know, that's okay. And also because I don't know if I know how to put you in the same groups twice. So you get a chance to speak to some other people. And it is, I was saying to Jen just before, it's writing for the web, which is great because this morning, for absolutely no reason, I thought I was doing video today. So luckily I've got that one planned now as well as writing. So who have we got? We've got most people here, so we'll get started. There we go. You should be able to see my screen now. If anybody can't see my screen, then drop us a message in the chat and you can use that all the way throughout. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Rosie McIntosh. I work for Third Sector Lab. I'm one of the directors there, and we are all people who work in the non-profit world, so either for charities or in the public sector, and we go and share our skills with other people, mostly through digital skills. My other role is that I am the Chief Executive of Mindwaves, which is a mental health storytelling charity, which works with people with lived experience of mental health to share their stories and experiences. And I'm also the chair of Outside the Box, which is a community development charity. So that's my kind of current experience. Started off as a press officer, maybe like 15 years ago now, and have done much more kind of digital work since then. So usually this is the point where I would ask you all to introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about yourselves. But given that we've got, 60 people in the group now, I don't think we're going to manage to do that. However, as I've said, we will do some more practical stuff and you will get a chance to chat to each other, because definitely you do not learn from me sitting here telling you what to do and explaining things. You learn it by doing it, and you'll learn from each other. So what we'll do instead is, I kind of thought maybe we could try and do something fun and use the annotate tool to do this. If you have that function on your computer, then you can. If you're on a tablet or on your phone or on a Chromebook, I don't think you will have that function. So in that case, you can just drop into the chat. I'm interested to see who is the furthest away. So if you put in the chat either where you are, either use the chat to just drop in your name and where you are, or if you've got the annotate function, then you should be able to mark onto the map where you are. I'm going to see if I can do it just now. Oh, there's a star on the map. That was good. I didn't think to do that. I'm going to put a heart. I'm kind of in there. There we go. All right, we've got somebody over in Edinburgh, right? Okay. Oh, somebody up in, is that Inverness? Love that. Chat. I'm going to keep an eye on. Oh, Loch Gilphead. This is about when I try and put Loch Gilphead on the London. Somebody from London. Right, you're winning so far. I'm going to put an arrow all the way down here. How can I rotate the arrow? Somebody in Dundee. What's that about here? Stars rather than arrows. Dunbar, I can't. Oh no, Dundee's further up than that, isn't it? Is that the fourth and that's the Tay? Let's put Dundee there. Another Dundee. Renfrewshire, you're kind of there. London, yeah, I'm chucking you way down here. So, Solway Coast.
I'm so impressed at this because I would not have a clue.
Don't know where Solway Coast is. Is it down here? Have I got that anything right? Anything cool? That's kind of Galloway, isn't it? That's terrible. I should know things like that. Have we got in Falkirk? Let's chuck Falkirk in the middle there. That's kind of it. I've got a bit of a cluster in Glasgow. This is lovely because when we do training in real life, then we don't get to have people from quite so far. Dunbar, London, Renfrewshire. Somebody's tagged Gilphead. Is that over there then, or up there? Right, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Somebody, is this Inverness up here? A new message. Stirling. Oh, Stirling's actually quite hard. But kind of there. I don't know. Have we got anybody in the islands? Is that me who's put these stars up here? Because that's just the sea, isn't it? I think that's just me clicking on the chat. Okay, right, this is quite fun. I like this. We've still got quite a kind of, use the mouse rather than a razor there, quite a central belt-ish that we're going up as far as, is anybody in Angus? No, nobody's ever in Angus. I'm from Angus, I'm from Montrose. I'm going to put a star on for myself there, if I can remember where it is. Okay, oh, I've got all these stars I've put. Okay, right, I want to stop annotating now. There we go. Oh, I wonder if that saves. We get to keep our little map. I don't know if this is me or is this that island? Is that Uist? Or have I don't know. I think if I'm going to do this again, I need to practice my geography before we start. Learn where
I'm useless here. Sorry, Lewis.
Lewis.
Martha says it's Lewis.
Okay, right. Yeah, of course it is, isn't it? Lewis is the big one. Here we go. I've even been to Lewis. I still don't know. Right, lovely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for doing that. I would rather hear a wee bit about you, and we will get to know you as we go on. But it's lovely to see that we've got such a spread of people, and I'll hear a wee bit about what you do later. So they're still appearing. Still appearing. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. There we are. I don't want to see myself. There we go. So today we're looking at writing for the web. We've still got all these stars and hearts all over the map. I'm fine with that. I'm just going to keep them because I kind of love them. Maybe I'll delete them when we go into our little when we go into our groups. More appearing in the chat. I'm just going to check if it's anybody saying where they are, and if not, I'm going to. Yes, it's the star cat. It's lovely. It's lovely. So, writing for the web. Most of us probably have experience of writing, I don't know, whether we write reports, funding applications. Those of you who work directly in communications maybe have written press releases. Right, and then now more and more of us are being expected to write for the web, whether that's just filling something in for your website, writing a blog post, or doing a bit of social media copy. That's all, for me, comes under writing for the web. So the thing that makes that special for me is that generally people have less time or will commit less time to understanding what you've said. There's less space in general. Well, I mean, it's kind of infinite space in a way. You're not limited by what's on the paper, but you want it to take up less space. There's more distractions, which is why I've got my cat here, because that's what I always try and remind myself. More distractions means more competition, which means, like, why would somebody read the article that I've given them when they could be looking at a cat video instead? And it's just one click away. And then also it can be more challenging for people to actually read the text. So you can't get away with big bodies of text in the same way as you would, especially when people are reading on their phones. To use this clicker every time. So my first piece of advice is, before you get started on actually what you're going to write, is to be really clear about why it is that you're writing it and the purpose of your content. So the first point for that is that we identify who it is that you're writing for. So once you identify your audience, then you can think about what it is that you want to say to them, and think about what it is that they need from your content. There's two ways of thinking about that. What is it that I want them to know, and what is it that they're going to try and find? And then you have to match that up somewhere in the middle. And then we think about, well, how can we use the tools that are just words to deliver that? So, number one point is, when we identify our audience, remember that what you're writing is for them. I'm going to get rid of, I did really like my, I like all these stars and hearts and things, but they are kind of getting in the way, aren't they? Let's see. Sorry to rub them out. That's what I'm going to do. Make it a bit bigger. Don't mind me. Just these ones. There we go. It's only the central belt. Not the exciting ones. Anybody who was in an exciting place, yours can stay. Okay, so when we're writing for our audience, we are bearing in mind that it's them that are the important ones. So it's not you, it's not what do I want, it's not what does my boss want, it's not what does the board want to be on the website, it's what will meet the needs of our audience. And you can do some work to identify what your audience is, and you will always have more than one audience. I think it's important to identify like a sort of a primary audience. So for me, I will always think the people who use your services and the people that you're there to support, they might not be your only audience, but I still think that you need to imagine one of those people reading every single page and make sure that it's respectful to them and make sure that it meets their needs. So while you might be saying, actually, this isn't for that audience, you still have to think, well, how do we address them? So for example, I do a lot of work around the impact of welfare reform and benefits and things like health assessments on people with mental health problems. And sometimes the stories that we tell about that are really difficult and present quite a negative and difficult picture because that's the reality of it. I would never shy away from saying those negative things, but I would always think, well, what would be the impact on somebody of reading that? Would they feel that things were hopeless? So where we might be painting a difficult picture for the sake of a campaign, I would need to make sure that we were not frightening the very people that we work with. So always imagine a real life person reading every word you write and try and imagine, like actually come up with an actual individual in your head. Mine's often my dad, because he's often confused. So it makes it sound like he's a newspaper editor or was a newspaper editor. So he always just says, what does this mean? What is it you're trying to tell me? And we need to make sure that the content works for all those people. So that's your starting point. Imagine that you're actually addressing a real person who's right in front of you. Another thing to be aware of is that real person who's reading something, whether it's on their phone or whether it's on a screen, that they don't go through and read every single word and then make an assessment. They look at the page, look at it very quickly, they make a split-second decision about whether this is the page that they want to be on. In fact, before they even click on the page, when they get to the point that they get some Google results up, they make a decision about whether they're going to continue and read in more depth. And as a very rough guide, we know from using like eye tracker software that there's this F shape that applies. So that applies to each paragraph and to the full page. So they'll scan across the top to see what the headline is. They'll scan down the left-hand side to see the menu, and they'll go across the tops of the first couple of paragraphs to see either what the heading is or what the introductory things are. It's pretty much the same with a screen reader. A screen reader will also read out a screen reader is what blind and visually impaired people will use when they're navigating the web, and it will read out the text to them. It will first of all read the headings and the links, and then get to the body text if that's where they want to go. We say roughly people will read about 20% of the words on a page, and you can lose them instantly. If you ever use Google Analytics, you'll see how little time people spend on your pages usually. So when we're writing, we have to keep that in mind. I think there's a tradition of school and formal education, probably certainly when I was at uni, there was a sort of, I will lay out my argument, this and this, and we will talk about that and that, and you build everything up and then you reach some grand conclusion at the end. Now, we can't do that when we're writing for the web. We don't leave the best till last. You get in right away with the information that's going to grab them, that's going to give them the maximum information that they need immediately and let them know whether they should continue reading. Your heading and that introductory paragraph often is all people will see, and it should deliver what they want. That's probably, to me, I think the most difficult thing about writing. And if you can write a good heading, then that makes a good tweet. And we're going to do that exercise later. It's kind of the most difficult thing to do, good headings. What I would say with your heading is make it interesting, make it appealing, but don't try to be too clever. One of my favorite web user experience books, which is not a very cool thing to say, I'm aware, is called Don't Make Me Think. So sometimes people try to do clever things. So there are certain things that we expect when we go to a website. There are certain types of language that we expect. So say you're going to do something about the team, it could be about us or meet the team. If you try and make it something really cool or try and use a lot of wordplay in your headings and things, people think that's good writing, but actually because it's not clear, it's not great. Oh, sorry, somebody's just at my door and signed for a package. 2 seconds.
The joys from working from home, isn't it?
Sorry about that, apologies. This is the world we live in now, where we just sit in our kitchens and deliver webinars and get stuff delivered. Where did I get to? Okay, yes, so make it interesting, but don't try and be too clever in your headings because it's just confusing. Include those keywords, and that's helpful for Google as well as for the reader. Keep it short and to the point. And I've said you use sentence case. So again, I think at school and things, I was taught that headings should have a capital letter at the start of every word. Don't do that online. When we read words, we don't, just as I've said, we don't read every word on the page. We also don't read every letter within a word. So I don't know if anybody's seen these psychology experiments where you can see, or reading experiments, where you can muddle up the letters in the middle of a word and it's still perfectly readable because we learn words as shapes. And if you could put a capital at the start of the word, that interrupts that ease of reading that happens with knowing the shape of a word. And it makes it milliseconds, microseconds probably, extra time to read each letter. And that's enough to make it more difficult for somebody to read and therefore mean that they're going to leave. I know that this doesn't paint a particularly good picture of us as human beings, that taking microseconds longer to read makes a difference, but it does. If there's one thing that you come away from today, it'll be keep it short. This is what I ended up with. My business card, I was kind of joking when my colleague was ordering them, and he was like, "Oh, what information do you want?" And I said, "You know what, you know me. If it was me, I would just have my name and a full stop on the card, and I got them delivered, and that is actually what they had, but just on one side." But keep it short. So use short words, use short sentences, and use short paragraphs. I would say never more than 400 words per page, and ideally less than that. And if you need to say more, that's fine. Have another page. There's nothing wrong with, which Jen might correct me on this, but as far as I know, there's nothing wrong with having lots of pages on your website, as long as each page is easy to find, is really specific, and delivers what people need from it. If you need to say more than fits on that one page, write another one or offer a download. Because if you have something as a PDF or as a document that people can go away and read separately, they'll spend longer on it than just scrolling through text. This is one of my favourite quotes. I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. And I think part of why I like that is because I like to emphasise to people that it's okay to take your time to write something short. Sometimes I think you can be sitting in an office and there's people around you and they're hammering away on their keyboards, tap, 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 tap. And it seems like they're all working really hard. And then I'm sitting there and going, how do I get this down to 140 characters or 280 that we're here now? And I think there's something that we have to say, give ourselves credit for, and say that there is value in doing that, like writing something shorter, making it more concise is working hard. As well as short, we want it to be simple. So talk the way that real people talk as far as possible. That's avoiding like the jargon and all the acronyms. My background was working in international development, and we used to have NFIs, which it took me a long time to learn was non-food items. And nobody knows what that means, the delivery of NFIs. So people enjoy walks in the countryside. They don't utilise their outdoor environment. Even if we're used to writing that in funding applications, just talk the way that people really talk. Sometimes the best way to do that is to actually just record on your phone, use your memos or your notes or something, and talk into it. Because there's something that happens when we sit down in front of a computer that all of a sudden we feel like you have to type in a specific kind of way that's not very human. Use direct language. Again, there's lots of these things that are, I find it hard to explain because I don't necessarily have a background in grammar and syntax and all these kind of things, but using this sort of active direct language. So we would say, we offer counselling instead of saying counselling is offered, because it's easier to understand and it's clearer. And there, the tip I would always say is to say who does. So instead of saying, think the law should be changed to, we say, MSPs should take action to change the law. Somebody described it to me, a really fun way I thought of understanding this was saying to apply the buy zombies test. And if you can put the phrase buy zombies at the end of a sentence, then you're not using direct language. So we offer counselling by zombies doesn't work, but if it says counselling is offered by zombies, then that means I'm not being clear about who the subject of the sentence is, and I'm not making it easy for my audience to understand. Another part of that is using positive language where possible. This is not about positive thinking and not talking about things that are difficult or negative. This is about being clear about what is available, and because of the fact that we know that people don't read every single word on the page. So instead, don't talk about what you can't do, and partly because it's negative and it's not very helpful, but more importantly because people will see those words and get them. And I don't know how many times you've asked somebody to go to the shop, or you've done it yourself, and they said, what do you want? And you say, well, anything but cheese and onion crisps, and they come back with a packet of cheese and onion crisps. Like, you can tell that I've taken this to heart. And that's because those are the words that stick in your head, and you don't realise the words that are round about it. So if you say we cannot offer this, then people won't necessarily read those words and they'll expect it from you. And then the third part of this kind of direct language is that I would recommend, where possible, that you use first and second person language. So you talk about, I do this and we do this, and we say, you can get that. So we're not talking about, don't talk about your organisation as they, or by the organisation's name. Talk about it as we, as if you're having a direct conversation with somebody. Now, all these slides are available, by the way, so they'll be shared with you after. There's also a recording of this webinar, so don't really have to take note of all of it. I'm aware I'm throwing a lot of information at you just now. So once you get into your text, break it up a little bit. As I said, keep your sentences and your paragraphs short. And then if you can, put some subheadings on them. And then if you're doing those, if you have the option to format them and name them as headings and subheadings, that's even better. That's helpful when we think about that F shape that people read with, but also because we know that Google uses subheadings to find your pages. So make sure you have your keywords in your subheadings. If you have a list of things, break it up and use bullet points. And it's a very, very general rule of thumb. I would say about up to 5 points in a list, I would use bullet points. If it's any more than that, I would use a numbered list. And it's okay to have lots of numbers in it. And don't be afraid of using a bit of leaving white space on the page. It makes it easier for people to read. I am looking at this going, why did I choose to use a bento box? And I've realised that, yeah, it's because you want to keep things that are different from each other in separate sections and leave space between them. There we go. If there are things in your text that you want to draw attention to, you can use bold text, You can use feature panels. Don't get like all excited. Remember when we first got Microsoft Word and everybody started doing rainbow words and animated things in 100 different fonts and things? I'm certainly not advocating for that. But having a clear way of marking out important text using bold is a good thing to do. The other thing I would say is if, for example, you have if you have links, use the standard blue for links and underline or underline. Some people want to use their brand colors just because that's what they have. But remember, the way people are used to things being a certain way. And it's just the same as when people are, when you're out driving and you're used to seeing a triangle sign for a warning. I'm saying this like I can drive, but there are expectations that we have when we need to make split-second decisions. We need to understand what we're seeing. So getting creative and thinking, oh, we'll put all our links on our website in pink actually doesn't work with what web users are used to, in the same way as having some pink road signs because to make your neighborhood more exciting wouldn't work for drivers in the area. More pictures of things organized into spaces. That's something I love so much. I love things being sorted out and organized, as you can see. And it works the same for our information when we're writing online. So whether it's a blog, whether it's an event, whether it's a full page, be clear for the reader about what will happen on this page and what they'll get from it. And as I've said, if you have something else to talk about, or if you have more to say, write another piece and put it somewhere else. Don't try to do everything on the same page. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't have colour and it shouldn't have interest. So include quotes from people, include links to case studies that are, or include excerpts of case studies that are relevant. Use pictures to make it look pretty. I would say in general, use pictures that, if it's of a specific event or something, if you're at an event and you take a picture and then your post is about that, then sure, yeah, use that. But I would say try to capture the feel and the emotion through your pictures, not necessarily to illustrate what's happening. So if you have offered somebody a service and it's made them happier, show a picture of a happy person rather than a picture that necessarily shows them receiving the service. And I would say for accessibility on that, if you use a photograph, remember that blind people won't be able to see the picture, but they will, so you can put some alternative text so that they can hear a description of the picture. And I would always include that. You should do that right across all your web and social media. But if you're using a picture that's purely just to make it look pretty and doesn't add anything to the story and give any extra information, there's an argument for not putting a description of it in, because it can just be more confusing for a screen reader. Make your information useful as far as possible. Often people want to describe lots and lots of things about what they do and how they were founded and how they're funded. Our funders want us to do that. But what's much more important is giving information that people need. That's why I've used toilet roll as a picture here, because that's the thing that we all want. We've learned that. So you can offer links to other sites, even if it's not your own website. That's not the important thing. It's saying, well, here's where where you can get information. Offer your products and services, make it easy for people to do things. So can they download something? Can they book an event? What's their next step? And then toilet paper and tin openers. We need things that are useful and we need things that work and are practical. So check your spelling and grammar. Now, what I am not saying here, and what I want to be absolutely clear on, is I would never say that good spelling and good grammar are what makes a good writer. There are plenty of writers in the world who don't have the first clue about spelling and grammar and can still do brilliant work. Apparently, he's maybe not everybody's favourite person, but certainly a good writer was A.A. Gill, and he used to dictate all his writing, and then somebody went away and typed it up because he couldn't do that. So if you're not good at spelling and you're not good at grammar, that's okay. But use a tool or use a colleague who can proofread to fix that stuff, because it does look unprofessional. And people, and we know that even with things like spam emails and things, little things like a spelling mistake can be enough that people spot that it's not professional and that it's not legitimate. By the same token, make sure your links work. I'm saying make sure your links work. It will never be the case that there's not a single broken link on your website. We all have them. I would encourage you to, if you see them on somebody else's website, to let them know. And I always appreciate when somebody lets me know. Oh, there we go. Somebody is suggesting Grammarly as a tool. Now that's really, really helpful, because there's no shame, certainly, in using a tool to help you with that. And the other thing is, if you use something like, if you have, say, an animated section and you rely on something like Flash, be aware that not all your users will be able to see that. So you should also have a text version available. I have kind of weaved this concept all the way through here because it is something that's really important. But as far as possible, you need to keep your writing accessible. A lot of people, when they think about accessibility, focus on screen readers, which is what I've been talking about there. I don't know if anybody here is using a screen reader. Please let us know in the chat if you are. But remember, it's not just about that. It's also about people who maybe have low literacy levels, people who don't speak English as their first language, people who have mental health problems maybe and have trouble with concentrating or take medication, or have dyslexia or have colour blindness. So there are all these things to be aware of when people are navigating your website and reading your text. However, some kind of top tips are, every time somebody says, in fact, yeah, when somebody says to me, oh, is it accessible? The only question I have to ask next is, accessible to who? And for what reason? And so there will be differences between your different audiences in that. So I said already, if somebody's using a screen reader, they'll read the headings first, and then they'll go through and they'll read the links. The hyperlinks will be read out to them. If the hyperlinks, as in if the section of text that's underlined that you would click on to go to that other page or that other website, if it just says click here, then somebody using a screen reader, and actually as well, somebody just reading with their eyes, all they'll get from that is click here, click here, click here. So that's not helpful to them at all. If it's okay to write the words click here, but say click here to read a report, read our latest report, or click here to register for the event, or just register for the event actually is enough, because people understand from the convention that they can click on it. That's my spiel on the click here's. Keep the contrast high. So, well, on this page, for example, I've got a heading up there where I've got white text against a pink background. I've used, there are tools where you can check that the contrast is high enough. So there's lots of contrast checkers online to make sure that people can see the difference between those colours. If it was, for example, a green text against a pink background, then somebody who was colourblind probably wouldn't be able to read it, so that wouldn't be a good idea. But also, I think a heading's okay like that. I certainly wouldn't be giving you a full page of white writing against a pink background, because it is that bit more difficult to read. And as I've said, use alt tags. So that's your alternative tag. That's where you use a text description of an image where appropriate. And there are some times when you wouldn't want to, like where I've said, where something's just to make it look pretty. You don't need to describe that to people. Be clear that every page has a purpose and that you want to have a call to action on every single page. So what is it that I want the person to do as a result of having read this page? Do I want them to use my service? Do I want them to become a volunteer, come to an event? Whatever it is that I want them to do, make it clear what it is that I want and make it really easy for them to do it. And as I mentioned, keep it short. So this is I'm half joking here, but not completely. So write your content, proofread it, take out half the words, then take out half more, and then cut out any unnecessary words at the end. And value that process. Oh, yes, Jen, thank you so much for putting Jen's put a link here to checking background colours with accessibility, which is really helpful. Oh, somebody's mentioning Hemingway. Is that a tool? Active passive distinction. Yeah, I was thinking that you meant like the writer Hemingway, who definitely writes in direct language. Okay, I'm going to pause there. We're at 22. I'm going to just come out for a second and just check if everybody's okay, if anybody's got any questions, if there's anything that I've said there that hemingwayapp.com. Let's go back a second, because we are going to move on to features and benefits in a second. So I'm just going to give you a minute to chip in if you've got any questions or comments or anything else. I feel a bit like a minister at the wedding. So speak now or hold your silence for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Rosie?
Yeah, thank you.
The point, I think it was on the draw attention slide.
Mm.
I didn't quite understand that, and I'm not sure if I missed something or if you went over it. And I've not actually taken a note of what it said. I was just thinking, oh, I wonder what that means. And then I kind of thought, oh, I still don't know what that means. So I'm not sure if I missed something.
Draw attention. Let's go back to that and see if I can remember. Right, there's the draw attention slide.
The top right is an action point.
Ah, right. Yes. Sorry, I didn't say that, did I? I've said the top right is an action point. With people using phones now, it's not quite so much as it used to be. However, when you are on your screen, very often the sign in for a page or the donate or the phone number and things will be at the top right of the page. Certainly when you go to log into an account and things, that's where you'll see it. So if there's like a clear action point that people are going to do on the page, then that would be where I would position it. It doesn't work quite the same on mobile, so things are changing a bit. I think that's probably why I kind of skipped over that there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you. That was a good question. Thanks for bringing that up, because I did miss that, I've realised. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, right. There will be more chance for chat, so actual proper chat. So I'm going to go through quickly this concept of making your writing sell. And I know we're not always comfortable with using the word sell in the charity sector, and it's not necessarily what we mean anyway, but what I mean by that is like using your writing to convince people of things, whether that's to convince them to be a fundraiser, to raise money for you, convince them to be a volunteer, convincing them to sign up to your campaigns. What can we do to write in a way that encourages people to take action? So we could spend a long time talking about this and doing this, but here are some very quick pointers. So what makes people take action is we need to have a balance of the features, so the factual information about something, and then the benefits, which is the difference that it will make. And we know that like in sales and in advertising, you'll get both of these things, and we'll look at some examples of that. And sometimes there's a bit of a crossover between them, but we need to have them both there. And then we need to have a clear call to action with clear next steps. So as an example, if I was to talk about my dishwasher, the features of it might be, this is a front-loading dishwasher, it's got a AA energy rating, it offers a 30-minute cycle, it's white. And the benefits of it will be you spend your time doing more exciting things than washing the dishes. So if we want to sell, we can sell it as a lifestyle thing. We can say, look at these people sitting watching a movie at night and nobody resentfully washing up in the kitchen. Isn't this lovely? The benefits might be a little bit, they can be quite intangible, maybe. And that's the way that I would say about talking about benefits, is to continue asking yourself the question, like, so what? So I've loaded the dishwasher, so what? So it's washing the dishes for me, so what? So I don't have to do it, so what? So I'm not getting eczema on my hands, maybe, so what? So I'm not sore. I'm really selling the concept of a dishwasher here. I'm not necessarily intending to. What I want to say is, like, these are the differences between the features and the benefits. If I then apply that to a kind of charity sector example, this is one that's quite clear. So when I worked at Oxfam, part of my job was on Oxfam Unwrapped. So the product might be to buy a mosquito net. And the features of that mosquito net, I probably wouldn't focus on too much. I would focus on them if I was going out and selling mosquito nets to individuals who need them. I would say, look at this, it's lightweight, it's permeated with repellent, it's cheap, the size of the holes is this exact size, it's got hooks on it so you can hang it up. Those are the features of the net, right? But the benefits are, it'll stop mosquitoes. That will reduce malaria, that will help children live longer, that means that our family will be happier, that means that, you know, the list keeps going on and on. So that question of, so what are the benefits, never really ends. And then when we have the call to action, we say, you know, you can buy this for just this amount and it'll change things. So what I would like to do is, this is where I need Jen's support, I'm going to split you into groups. I'm going to work in fairly small groups in this, I would say up to 5 people. So it'll be 4 or 5 in each group. And I'd like you to talk together about one thing to do with your work. So it might be an event, it might be a campaign, it might be a service you offer. And I'd like you to discuss, and just choose one in your group. What are the features of that? So what are the facts? What are the benefits? And then what do you want somebody to do about it? Any questions before we do that? Oh, thank you, Jen, for writing that in the chat. I was just about to do that, because when we go into our groups, we can't see the slides anymore. Maybe there's a way of doing that, I don't know. Is everybody clear on that before we separate you out? And then we won't go through everybody, but it would be nice to get some feedback from you when you come back from your groups. So have a think about who you can nominate in your group to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing for just now.
Okay, I'll just open the breakout rooms now.
Hello, everybody, again. How did you get on there? Is anybody happy to feedback the example that you used in your group? Who's not feeling shy? So, Deborah, if you switched off your mic, is that because you're happy to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were discussing work for Dean and Coven Young People's Trust. It's a children's charity, and we offer also fostering to teenagers and young mothers and their babies. So at the moment we are going through another recruitment campaign to get more foster carers. And we were saying the features are, you know, like dedicated worker, 24-hour on-call service, peer support, training, you get good fees. Some of the benefits also are the features, but also the benefits are like making a difference to a young person's life, giving them a home, you know, maybe even just getting a career. Like, it used to be quite a vocation being a foster carer, whereas now it's quite a caring profession. You know, and it's seen as a caring profession now. And the call to action would be like to visit our website, request a pack, you know, contact us by phone, email, that sort of thing. So
Well done. That's a really nice example. Like and it's really clear, like those differences between the features of the service that you offer and then the benefits, which are so huge. And they keep going, don't they?
One of the other benefits that we had said as well was like my charity has been in existence since 1733.
Wow.
So we're the oldest charity in Scotland. So we've got a
Really?
lot of history. Yeah. So we've got a
Wow.
lot of history, and a lot of like our history's rooted in what we do even today. So like the merchants that set up the charity was to save the children from slave labour and prostitution.
Wow.
And we're still kind of saving children to this day. So
That's a nice story. You
mm-hmm.
tell that one.
Like it's a nice story to, and then a lot of people say, oh, you know, we still have that family feel, that people that join us. So
brilliant. Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing that.
yeah, no worries.
Did anybody in a different group do something? Well, right, actually, do you know what would be helpful to hear? Did anybody do something that it's really hard to see the difference between the features and benefits? Is it nobody want to share something that was difficult? Raise your hand, or well, it's okay to be shy. We'll allow shyness. Although I'm going through like, somebody's got their mic off. Does that mean they want to talk? I don't want to pick on you.
We had one where there was lots more benefits than features, so we kind of focused a lot on the benefits and didn't have many features at all.
Okay, right. So can you tell us a bit about what those were?
Yeah, it was one of the people in the group's organising a virtual conference for people who have brittle bone disease. Okay. And normally they would be able to do that in person, but obviously at the moment many of those people are shielding, and therefore a virtual conference is much better. And it's really aimed at people who suffer from the condition, their carers, healthcare workers and other people in key sectors. But we talked about that very quickly, and then we talked a lot about the benefits of it being virtual, where they were probably expecting higher attendance because there wasn't the physical effort and time commitment to travel, and it would probably be a bigger event and easier for people. People were able to select which sessions they really wanted to attend rather than covering the whole agenda. And then they talked about live transcription and possibly translation session information available that wouldn't be there for a live event. And then the call to action was a kind of plea for people to join the virtual.
So I think events are a good example of something that's actually quite tricky to separate, because in a way, easy to attend, live transcription and translation, they're kind of features of the event. Like, I think there are benefits of running it online, but for the individual, they're features, whereas maybe the benefits would be connect with other people who understand brittle bone disease, or and then events in particular are difficult like that, because things like learning something, is that a feature or is it a benefit? The fact that I sort of say some stuff maybe as a feature of what we're saying, but if you go away and apply it in your work and change things, then that's the benefit. So I'm always clear on this, is like, yes, do think feature, benefit, call to action, but don't think that they're so clearly distinguished from each other that that they can go in completely separate boxes. It's okay for them to be a bit of blurring between them. Okay, so before we move on, has anybody else got something that they'd like to feedback, or did anybody struggle in your groups to think of an example? No, I bet you were all chatty when you were in your groups. That's the thing, it's really hard to shout into a group this size. Okay, I will continue then, if that's okay. I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time. I assume that if somebody puts their hand up, then that alerts us, but I'm not sure if it does.
I'm just checking. I'm shy on the second page of video as well.
Okay, right, we'll carry on just now then, and we are going to do another group exercise soon. I'm also conscious of time, that I'm not quite sure how long this will take us, but let's see how we get on. If, because I am conscious of time, if we do need to hurry through some bits, then don't worry about that, because you will get slides after. I'd rather that we have the practical exercise together than that I describe every word that's on the screen. Okay, so here we go. But well done with that, and thank you for doing that exercise. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of time to think about writing with Google in mind. And again, this could be a whole, well, it certainly could be a whole day. It could, I'm pretty sure it could be a degree. There are people who have this as their job. So search engine optimization, we will take a quick look at, and I can give you some advice on it. So SEO is, as I said, search engine optimization. Obviously, there are other search engines, not just Google, but also kind of not. Really, it's Google that is overwhelmingly the place that people go to search for information. And it's about making sure that your content appears on the first page, and ideally appears in the first 3 or 4 listings, especially if somebody searches for something specific. Like if somebody searches for Foster Services Scotland, was it Cove that Deborah said, then we would definitely want to see you up there first. So the way to do it, and people sometimes talk about, oh, you know, all this sort of metadata and all that happening behind the scenes. Don't worry about that too much. The way to become popular on Google, or to become part of the algorithm on Facebook, or to be shown first on Twitter, is to be interesting or be useful. Because, I mean, I've put a picture here of somebody at Speaker's Corner, because a crowd draws a crowd, right? So if something happens in the street that's of interest to people, then a few people, this is not how we behave at the moment, we know, but we'll notice that a few people will gather around. And if you see a few people gathered around, then more people will gather around them. And then it starts to be that people are just in the crowd because they're in the crowd and they're not even looking at what's at the front. It's exactly the same with the information that we have online. So the more people have visited something, the higher it will be rated. The more people have commented on it, the higher it will be rated. The more people have put that link elsewhere on their own website, so it's those what we call backtracks, the more attention it will get. Not backtracks, trackbacks. So the more it's read, sometimes the longer it's been there, although that's a bit, not quite so much, so new content can work well, the more likely it is to be seen. And the best way to do that is to make your content good, basically. So that's a totally non-technical element. More than that, if you want people to be able to find you, you want your content, your writing, to contain keywords. So have a little think about what are your keywords, and then use those words a lot. And it's not about putting them secretly behind the scenes in metadata, it's about using them in your text. There is a Google Keyword Planner tool, which you can go and have a look at, and you can see, you know, what people find when they search for those keywords. But what I would say is be clear, use the words that real people use, even if it's not the language that you tend to use internally. So please do use the chat here. I'm going to look for this. So first of all, quick question. What is this? Oh, Big Ben, Westminster Tower, Big Ben, but Big Ben! Oh, Elizabeth Tower, is that it? So it's a clock. It's not Big Ben, right? Susan Robertson, it's not Big Ben. It's, I think the first person said Westminster Tower, did they? Right, okay, so Big Ben is the bell. We know this, right? This is one of these things that I'll tell you. Big Ben is the bell. However, if I do a search for Big Ben, that's what I want to see. Sometimes the correct answer, the accurate answer, isn't the commonly used one. And we can have a big long argument about that. But if somebody does a Google for Big Ben, that's the picture they want to see. But maybe look at the information. Okay, another one just for fun. What's this? I didn't mean to have such nationalist Union Jack. The Union flag, Siobhan, right, okay, a flag, okay, that's definitely accurate. It's a flag. Great Britain. So there are all the things that it evokes, all the tags that go along with it. Those of you who said Union flag, yes, are technically correct, because it's only the Union Jack when it's, as we said, when it's flown on a boat. I think possibly even a boat in the Royal Navy. Doctor Who taught me that distinction also. I love this. However, everybody calls it the Union Jack, and if you wanted to sell merchandise that had Union Jacks on it, you'd be much better to had Union flags on it. Sorry, if I want a Union flag cushion for my couch, which to be clear I don't, I would search for Union Jack, and that's what I'd call it, even though it's not the technically correct name. So one more then. What's this? Oh, nobody's tipping in for this. Services, an accessible egg cup, disabled toilet, a bad sign. Yeah, it's not a great sign. Disabled toilet, a bidet, accessible toilet sign, disabled toilet sign, yep. Okay, a mix there. So accessible tables. It is confusing. It is a confusing one. It's a sign for a toilet. And I would say, so this is where because I have done a lot of work and worked for a lot of charities that work with disabled people. And what we would say, I could get into a whole thing about the social model of disability and people having an impairment, and that the toilets, and these are really important conversations. So when I say it like that, I'm not meaning to dismiss them. But a toilet should be described as an accessible toilet. The toilet is not disabled. The people who use them may be disabled people. However, if a disabled person comes onto my website and is wanting to check that I've got disabled toilets, they're going to search for disabled toilet rather than accessible, right? So the language that we want to use might not, or the language that we use internally, and for good reasons, because language is important, still might not be the language that's used on Google. An example of that I have from my work, which was a really difficult one, is that I used to work for the Mental Welfare Commission. And the Mental Welfare Commission monitors the Mental Health Act. So if because of your mental health, you have to be detained in hospital, then that is called, anybody check it? Does anybody want to chip in with what it's called if you're detained in hospital for your own safety because of your mental health? No, okay. So sectioned, right, thank you, Siobhan. Apparently, no. So it is that you are detained under the Mental Health Act. And my colleagues at the Mental Welfare Commission were very clear on this, that we were never to use the term sectioned, because that's not what it is. And that's a stigmatizing term. And I understand that maybe it is a stigmatizing term. But the problem for me was if somebody was scared that they were going to be sectioned, or if somebody thought that this was what had happened to somebody in their family, and used the terms that people use from day to day, when they searched for sectioned in Scotland, they didn't get the Mental Welfare Commission, which is what they should have got, the place that would have given them the proper information about their rights. They got a lot of other information that was much less helpful, and some of which was actively harmful. So for me, it was really important that we did use that term. And it meant that sometimes we would say, if you're detained under the Mental Health Act brackets, what used to be known as sectioned, just in brackets. Then that would mean that when somebody searched for it, that they would actually find the information that they needed, and that they vitally needed, that people were terrified of what would happen if they were detained under the Mental Health Act, which they called sectioned. And I didn't feel in any position to be telling people who were that unwell that they were using the wrong language and therefore they didn't deserve to get the information that they needed. So you probably have examples of that in your own work, and it's a complicated conversation because language is important, and the way that we talk about things, we shouldn't just go to the lowest common denominator, but we still need to make sure that it's useful. Citizens Advice have got some really good stuff on this. So they changed the way they have on every page, they have a "Did you find this useful?" section. They store that, they evaluate their search terms. So they used to have a page called Advice About Bailiffs, which is now called Check What Bailiffs Can Take, because that's what people search for. What can a bailiff take from me? And at the point where you're wondering what a bailiff can take from you, you're not freaking out about which language you're going to use, unfortunately. Right, okay, yeah, revenge porn. It's not entertainment, it's not, yeah. And I've said, you know, revenge porn shouldn't be called revenge porn. That's ridiculous. Why are we still using this term? But of course, that is what people say that. Yeah. And non-consensual sharing of intimate images isn't so clear and catchy, as you said. Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you, Siobhan. I think if you use the term revenge porn on the page and say, for example, some people call it revenge porn, but we don't agree with that because, you know, you can still say, this is why we don't think you should say this, but you still have the information searchable if people do use that. Okay, I'm probably talking for far too long on that because it's something that I'm interested in. I've said this already, so for Google's sake, keep your information in distinct places and be clear about the content of each page, because Google will draw people directly to that page rather than taking them to the home page of your website. Use your headings and your subheadings, format them as headings as well, and put the keywords in the subheadings and in the headings. Sometimes it's helpful to just write down like 3 keywords that you're going to use for writing that page and make sure that you've included them throughout. Tag your content. It's much, much easier to do this as you go along. So either tags or categories for each page, and then you can automatically draw people to those pages. Jen will know much more about that than me. And then my other question is, my other sort of advice, which is probably not very professional, is actually forget about Google. So don't write for Google. Don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a really search engine optimized page. Just focus on your audience, make sure you're meeting their needs, and then it will be ranked well on Google. Making your page accessible and making sure you're writing for your users is much more important. So don't let Google drive your content strategy. Just to contradict everything I just said. So what we said for Google and for our readers and for our tweets and our newsletters and our blogs and our Facebook, headings, short summations of the story are really, really valuable. So we're going to have a look at that, and we're going to spend a little bit of time trying that in our groups. So let's go back to that. Remember, we had that pyramid with the full article with the introduction and the heading. Most people will only ever see a tweet, or they'll only ever read the heading. So how do we make sure we get our point across to those people, or convince people to come in and read more? So there are a few different ways of writing a heading. And there's no clear boundaries between these things, but I've kind of divided them into a few different approaches. So for example, we've got a breakfast club. You can have a heading that just gives us the facts. New breakfast club at Park Hill Primary. And that's good for Google because somebody will search for that and they'll search for the specific area and they'll get it. You can do the heading as a sort of news story, like a kind of press release. YMCA launches breakfast scheme at Scottish Parliament. So that's a news about the launch. You can make your heading your call to action. So, book now for school breakfast club. You can make it a question. Do you need childcare before school? Or another nice way of doing a heading is to pull out a quote and put that as the heading. I can get to work and the kids get a healthy breakfast. Okay, so I hope we can see those kind of 5 examples. I'm going to copy them. Am I capable of doing that? Let's see. Right, I'm copying that just now so I can put it in the chat. If you want to, then a graphic header can work really well, and you'll get more engagement with your posts. So try Canva, or there are other graphics packages available, and use an alt tag for them as well. So if you've got your heading, if you can write it up and put it with a nice picture, then it'll get more attention. It's worth playing around with different headings. And if, you know, probably you're going to tweet the same information more than once, or if you send it out in a newsletter, you're going to send it out more than once. So try using different headings and see which ones work the best, and then go with the ones that do work the best. So let's give that a go. We're going to go into our groups. We're going to go back to our, what are we going to go back? Yeah, let's go back. Oh, sorry. To the projects that we're talking about in groups before, and have a go at this, at thinking about a heading in these different styles. So a fact, a news story, a call to action, a question, or a quote to describe a project that you work on. And as I say, in your groups, just choose one. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't try and get these all perfect. Just have a little think about what could work for each of them, and then choose your, I'm going to say your perfect one. Yeah, let's call it your perfect one. Choose your favorite, and then we'll feed it back. So we'll stop share there. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this, which is not tons of time, I'm aware. We'll go back into our groups of 5 again.
Like the same groups, or we'll mix it up?
If we can have the same groups, then that would be good.
Yep, we can
I'm
do
going
that.
to paste in. So I've pasted in the 5 examples into the chat here. Have I achieved that? Yes. Okay. We've pasted in the 5 examples, but I'm sure you'll be fine. Any questions before we go into them? Is everybody clear on that? Okay. Good luck, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you.
Okay. Just open the rooms now.
Is there anybody still in rooms, Jen, or is that?
Nope, that's us.
No. Okay, a few people popped up in the chat to say that they had to get away to something else, which is perfectly okay. And I am conscious that we're now at, you know, we've got 3 minutes left. We might go over a couple of minutes. If anybody needs to get away, then please do, because I want to make sure that I do hear back from you. So who's going to be the first brave volunteer to tell us what you talked about in your group and what your headline was?
I can have a go.
Okay, Neil.
Hey.
Thank you.
I think it was Susan, Alex, and I think Susan works for a mental health charity. So, and they doing a campaign, walking 100 streets. So we, just, I suppose, I don't know, facts and news we were struggling with to get them separated out. But so just news, I can give an example of that we came with was Scottish mental health charity launches Walk 100 Streets.
Brilliant. And that's definitely news rather than facts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're both news should be facts, but.
And then, just a call to action, maybe, I don't know, sign up to walk 100 streets or something like that. But
brilliant. Yep.
I won't go through them all. Get someone else a chance to do those.
Okay. And did you decide the call to action? Was that your favourite?
Probably our favourite. I don't know. A quote would be cool, but we couldn't really think of something. I can clear my mind and clear the house for.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really great. That's really helpful. Yeah, I like that. That's a nice one. Anybody else? Is anybody else happy to share what you did? Or even, you don't have to tell us exactly what you did, but it would be nice to hear from you, like which of the 5 options you found worked best for you.
We went with a campaign to prevent the coming together of foreign aid with Foreign Office.
Ah, yeah, good one.
And our call to action was to email your MP, prevent 100 million people being plunged deeper into poverty.
Right. Yep. Strong.
We thought it was strong.
Yep. And that makes sense as a heading. It's just really clear, and you would want it to be the call to action because it's something you want people to do.
Yeah.
Right now.
I came up with a quote as well, which was, "I've done it, you can do it, we can all make a difference."
Lovely. And again, really action focused. I like that. Brilliant. Good luck. Are you working on that? Who is it that's working on that?
Can't see her on the screen.
She's on my
So
screen. She's
Eleanor.
right next to you. So Eleanor,
Eleanor.
so that's great. Lovely. Good luck with that one. Okay, we are just, this is at past now, so officially we're done. Thank you to those of you who fed back. If we were in a room, I would have got more people to feedback, but I hope you find that exercise helpful. It's not about going through and getting one for every single list. It's about thinking, oh, it just gives you a wee bit of a trigger to allow you to think about different ways of doing a heading, because often you just automatically go to the facts, don't you, and think, I just have to describe this. And thank you to everybody who's saying that you have to go. I do understand that, and I'm sorry that we're finishing a bit, that I've gone over a teeny wee bit here. I don't have anything else to tell you other than who I am. I'll share my screen just so you can get my contact details, which are here. Thank you so much for everybody. Well, and a quick recap, keep it short, keep it simple, keep it accessible, and remember your audience. If that's all you get out of today, then, then that's enough. I am on Twitter at Rosie Hopes and Rosie at thirdsectorlab.co.uk. There is a recording of today's session. There will be the slides will be shared, and you'll all get them, and feel free to share them. And don't forget, we've got lots of other sessions coming up over the next few weeks, some from me and some from other people. And thank you to, and now I'm like an Oscar speech or something, thank you to our funders, which have allowed us to do all this for free, which has been excellent. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to hang about and answer them, but if anybody needs to get away, then that's fine too.
Apologies, I'm just back after my internet cut out there and I had a small heart attack. So sorry. I was like, is that cut it off for everyone? Please tell me it's not cut it off. Anyway, I'm back on tethered on my phone.
We've learned that it doesn't cut it off for everybody.
Just in case anybody was talking to me and I wasn't responding. Yeah. I'm just popping a couple of links in the chat just now for signing up for future sessions. We've got a couple more with Rosie. I'm sorry if you've already said that, as I've just
I've not shared them.
And there's a very, very short feedback section as well, if you have a couple of minutes to spare.
That would be really helpful if people can complete that. So Sharon, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, I just wanted to say thanks. Enjoy today.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for that. I hope everybody enjoys their day. That was awful kind. Any questions from anybody before we head off? If you think of something after, then remember you can email me or you can tweet me. I'm more than happy to answer, even if it's just Ron.
Can I just ask where the recordings are? Are they on your website or the recordings from each session? Because I was in your session last week as well, and I was just wondering where they're sitting.
We've not published the recordings yet. I'm just waiting to find out where they're going to sit, but they will be shared on the Third Sector Lab Facebook page. Or if you don't use social media, then just drop me a wee email and I'll follow up with the recordings. But I'll be sharing the slides and other little bits from today just as soon as I can after today. But the recording, yeah, I'll have it I'll have it out as soon as I can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to see you. Somebody's asking about the storytelling one, which we will have, but I can also, I'm just going to put a link to that in the chat for you. If I can achieve that, can I?
Do you mean the slides?
Yeah.
They should have went out today.
I think it was somebody who wasn't in it.
Or somebody who wasn't there.
So somebody saying, oh, that would have been interesting. So here's the slides from the storytelling session. And I will also share the ones from today, but they'll be emailed out automatically, won't they?
When I do it.
Automatically. No.
don't set expectations. Like.
That's how it feels for me. Right, brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody, for your contributions today. I'll if everybody's got what they needed from the chat there, I'll close the session down. Or if you head off, then we'll see you at the next ones.
Thank you.
Thank you.